Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Star Trek Deep Space Wine, the show where two friends watch Deep Space Nine for the first time in Kat's case, and for the first time in a little while for myself. I'm Tim. We drink wine, we trudge through an episode, we talk about what we like, we talk a lot about what we don't like, and we generally have a good time with you there in chat as well, sharing your views. We do it an episode at a time, and as always, Kat has not seen Deep Space Nine before. We like to treasure their innocence coming into this weird show, so please keep spoilers in chat to a minimum. That's about all the intro I feel like doing. We had a bit of a kerfuffle trying to get set up for tonight's episode. That damn Cardassian tech was as unreliable as ever, and not for the first time do we wish we had a Chief O'Brien or even two of them to help us keep things fixed. But that is detracting from why we're all here, which is to talk about an episode of Deep Space Nine. I believe, Kat, I am going to hand to you for an introduction to this week's episode.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tim. Tonight's episode is Season 2, Episode 14, Whispers, which was first broadcast on the 7th of February, 1994. It was directed by Les Landau, story by Paul Coyle, teleplay by Paul Coyle and Michael Piller. In terms of content warning, the main warning that both of us felt this episode should have is that there is an air of conspiracy and paranoia throughout, a strong feeling on the part of the protagonist that everybody is against them. That continues for virtually the entire episode. It is very tense. So yeah, just to be aware of that if you're having any problems with that kind of thinking yourself at the moment, this might be a good one to skip. The only other one, some lethal phaser shots at the very end of the episode. Otherwise, that's about it.
Thank you, Kat. Appreciate it.
So, plot summary. Thank you to Wikipedia for providing this for us. It saves me having to go through and work out what to put down, because there is so much happens in this episode. Miles O'Brien pilots the runabout through the wormhole en route to the Parada system. He records a personal log of recent events. 2 days ago, O'Brien returned from a meeting with the Paradas to discuss security measures for upcoming peace talks. The next morning, he awakes back on Deep Space Nine to find his wife, Keiko, and daughter Molly dressed and eating breakfast at 5:30 a.m. Both seem awkward and suspicious around him. Upon reporting for duty, O'Brien found an officer had begun working on the security arrangements without him, apparently under orders from Commander Sisko. Shortly afterward, he saw Sisko and Keiko having a private discussion on the promenade. When asked about it, Sisko claimed he was concerned about his son Jake's grades in Keiko's class, but Jake later told O'Brien his grades were fine. At O'Brien's annual physical examination, Dr. Bashir gave O'Brien a clean bill of health only after an overly long and invasive examination. Additionally, problems O'Brien had been assigned to fix seemed to have been intentionally designed to make him spend additional time repairing them. Reviewing the other officers' logs, O'Brien discovers that Sisko and the others were observing his movements. O'Brien persuades Odo to investigate the other's suspicious behavior, but soon at a meeting in Odo's office, Odo appears to have joined the conspiracy as well. Sisko, Bashir, and Major Kira arrived to arrest and sedate O'Brien. He overpowered the others and fled the promenade. Through maintenance conduits, O'Brien made his way to the runabout Rio Grande and escaped. He contacted Admiral Rollman to warn her that the command crew of Deep Space Nine was under some hostile influence, but she ordered him to return to the station. Now en route to the Parada system in the Gamma Quadrant, O'Brien is being pursued by the runabout Mekong. He eludes his pursuers and hides behind a moon, and then follows the Mekong to Parada 2. There he finds Sisko and Kira with a pair of Paradan rebels who promise that the explanation to the mystery of the past few days is behind a door. One of the Paradans shoots him, and when the door opens, Bashir is behind it, along with another O'Brien. It is revealed that the Paradan government abducted O'Brien and created a clone who believed he was the real O'Brien, but would assassinate the rebels at the peace talks. As the clone dies, he asks the real O'Brien to tell Keiko he loves her. In case it's unclear, the clone is the one we've been following for the entire goddamn episode.
Masterful. Well done, Kat, and well done to that Wikipedia editor who managed to distill what is a very complex and convoluted story down into a digestible paragraph.
So I know that Wikipedia sometimes gets flack for not being kind of peer-reviewed, but it is. Nerds around the world look at Wikipedia, and when they see mistakes on it, they correct them. I think it's
exactly
perfect for purposes like this.
Exactly. It's a brilliant example of good collaborative working where people just pitch in to help where they can. I love Wikipedia. I think it's great. We rely on it a lot for the show. Support it. It's great.
It is.
Okay.
Just before we start, thanks
Please.
again to Wikipedia for the episode summary, Memory Alpha for its extensive detailing of Star Trek names, places, and events, the Star Trek Minutia website for having the entire DS9 shooting scripts, and the Trek Core website for the screen caps that we've taken for the episode. It saves me taking pictures on my mobile phone of my television with me reflected in them. I ain't got the tech to do it.
Well said, Kat. Well said. Trek Core is terrifyingly in depth as well. They have about every 5 frames of an episode, so they've got about 30 pages of screenshots from one episode alone. It's magnificent.
It is incredible. Occasionally you'll hit on a moment that you wanted to catch that it doesn't have, but it's just got so much on there. It's incredible.
It really does. So, yes, thank you to all of those people who have contributed their time and labour to help us put on our silly wine powered show. It is much appreciated. So, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, we tend to kick off with some kind of top of the head thoughts. Then we'll dig into it more kind of scene by scene, as much as we can kind of manage before we pass out from exhaustion. And then we'll have some summing up thoughts at the end when we're dying for the loo or bed. So that's the process we go through. If you'll permit me, Kat, I will jump in with some thoughts of my own off the top.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So this is, I think, us getting into the stride now, or kicking off properly the Torture O'Brien kind of ethos, which I know Kat is aware of just from being, around shitposting communities and the Star Trek kind of fan base. It has percolated beyond the show to inform viewers like them what happens, and this is, I think, a sterling start. And I think what carries a lot of this episode, in my impression, is Everyman Chief O'Brien, one of the most easily relatable, light-hearted, easygoing, normal. Forgive me for a given value of normal, but he's the everyman character. So to see him struggle with what is so effectively shot as a conspiracy against him is mesmerizing. It's because it happens to O'Brien, and that's, I think, what the creators realize. They've hit a gold mine. They're like, oh my god, if we do things to this guy, it hurts so much more than if we do it to Bashir or Dax or Cisco. So that's where it starts, and it starts with this because
I mean, speak for yourself. If anyone hurts Baby Boy Bashir, I will do my nut. I'll just
No spoilers. No spoilers, chat, right?
Sorry, that's asking for it, isn't it? But no, I do agree with you. O'Brien is the most relatable character to a late 20th century person. And yeah, they've really put him through his paces. I think as well the fact that Colm Meaney is the veteran Star Trek actor in the series at this point.
Absolutely.
Some of the others have worked as protagonists in other shows, but they know that they can give Colm Meaney a couple of long scripts in a row. He's been a feature character in 2 previous episodes, at least this series. We had Rivals, we had Armageddon Game, and he was one of the two or three main characters in both. And he can hack it. So
incredibly so.
The other cast need a day off. They've given him this incredibly long script where it's mostly him talking about what happened in flashback and then living it. He does an incredible job, and they can rely on him to bring all of his acting experience to it.
Absolutely.
And he's brilliant. He sells it at every moment, as do the rest of the cast. I think it's an incredible balancing act. Sorry, I've just realised that I interrupted you.
Fine.
Your impressions, Tim.
That's the point of the podcast, Kat. If I were to tell you to shut up and let me keep proclaiming, that would not be in the best spirit of the Federation, of its equal voice for all, so do not fret. And everything you said, I totally agree with. I think as well, it's worth saying right at the top that we spend 90% of our time with O'Brien. We don't get the perspective of anyone else, which you don't realise is happening until you've got to the end and you suddenly realise everything I've seen has been through Brian's point of view. I've not gone to Cisco's office or the infirmary with 2 other characters. I'm not in the bar with anybody else. It's always with O'Brien. So you yourself, the viewer, are being deceived. You are. You know you're not getting all the information, and it's unsettling. And that's why I think, Kat, you were right to flag at the beginning, because I found this damn unsettling. I remember the first time I saw it being absolutely, because you don't want them to be. You don't want this conspiracy to be happening. But you inherently feel on a gut level that what is happening is wrong, and that permeates every part of this episode, and it's spine tingling. It's great suspenseful stuff. Um, I'm not sure about the ending. It's the only thing, which I think I might have said before. In fact, I probably said it about Armageddon game, where I'm not entirely sure about the resolution, and that's why I like to do our sum up at the end, because I'll be very keen, once we've discussed the ending, get your thoughts on it, see what you think. But everything leading up to it is absolutely white knuckle suspense. Loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the writers don't. There are no cheap moves made in this episode. There's none of the main characters saying anything that is
Nope.
so wildly out of character that it throws you one way or the other. It's because throughout we've got to see the characters who are the characters we've seen throughout. They are being themselves. They're responding to a situation that we don't have the full information about yet, but they've
Yes.
got to seem unnerving. They've got to seem uncanny.
Yes.
And I think the cast do a very good job with a very good script. It's just so tightly scripted to make sure that the people who know and don't know at the right times are responding accordingly.
That's so true.
And yeah, and frustratingly, I guessed very early on that the O'Brien we were watching wasn't O'Brien because of his coffee order. You'll notice that the summary I've just read out didn't mention the coffee order. When I look up the lore about the episode, the background on Memory Alpha, it doesn't mention the coffee order. 4 times in this episode, O'Brien makes an unusually long and elaborate coffee order, the kind of thing that Cisco would usually do.
That's a good
He's
point.
never ordered that coffee before. He can never order it again because the clone is dead. They never explain why he makes this unusual coffee order 4 times. There's one point in the episode where he even says, "You're drinking too much of this stuff, O'Brien." I wonder whether there was a line in it somewhere saying, "Oh yes, in order to maintain running the neurological network of a brand new brain, the clone has to intake more sugar, more energy, more caffeine than the normal person." Because very early on, I suspected this wasn't O'Brien because he ordered, I think it was Jamaican style double strong, double sweet.
Double sweet. That's the one.
It's really distinctive, but
which he's never done before.
I think I found one conversation on Reddit where someone said that's not what's happening with that coffee order, and people were just like, "No, it's normal." Is that I'm like, no? So I feel like being a bit gaslit because I thought early on this wasn't O'Brien for a reason that apparently wasn't intentional on the part of the writers, or that got removed at some point in an early script writing.
That's my suspicion. I feel like that's the tail end of something that might have been chopped out, because you're right. You know, we know from the last episode that O'Brien likes coffee, but not after 3:30 in the afternoon, because that keeps him up. Big same. You know, oh, good Lord, big sympathy.
Except, of course, that he does drink it after 3:30 in the afternoon. So we've had the rug pulled out from under us twice. 2 episodes in a row, we've had O'Brien's coffee habits brought into question. And
I don't know what to
nothing
believe.
It's weird. It's so bizarre.
I trust nobody. I trust nothing. I don't trust the replicators. It's all lying to me. Cat, it's all lies. It's all lies. It's smoke and mirrors. Unbelievable.
See the effect this episode can have on a person.
This is why we do the content warning, people. This is why. So that is such a good point. You know, I do feel like that was meant to be signposting something, and then perhaps they must have left something out. I do feel like this episode was, as always, edited pretty harshly. You know, it flows great, but it flows real fast. This episode
There is, when we get to it, there's a whole scene missing, which tied it back into an earlier episode from TNG.
Yeah, I know the one you mean. You will have to bring that up when we get to it.
Yeah, they had to cut it for a small plot inaccuracy, I think. But yes, time is ticking, and we've got a whole episode to get through, which we both really enjoyed. There's a lot to be said about. So shall we wander onwards?
Let's do it.
But then in the caves on Parada 2, and nothing is special about them. They're caves, but they're caves you can beam into, which is very, very important.
That's a really good point. How convenient.
Very rarely happens. One for the books.
That's a good point.
There's a little archway built into it. There's clearly a building within the cave. O'Brien enters through the door and finds Cisco, Kira, and 2 Paradans and says, "Having a little unscheduled negotiation with the rebels, are we?" Which, yeah, given the information that O'Brien has been given, this looks incredibly suspicious, politically and in terms of the crew that he knows not acting as they usually do. One of the 2 Paradan guards says, "Everything you need to understand is behind this door." This is the first person who's actually tried to be open with O'Brien in the whole episode. First one willing to say, "We're going to show you what's happening now." But it's also the first time that they've actually got O'Brien to hand to make it believable to him. They didn't know what the fake O'Brien would do when they
Mm.
showed him, but the opportunity has come to find out. And Cisco tells, I don't know, I think O'Brien says, you put down your weapons, and he
Mm-hmm.
says, no, you put down your weapons. Cisco says, put down your weapon first. No. Okay, I'm getting
There's
confused. Cisco tells him, put down your weapons and I'll explain. O'Brien said doesn't trust him and says,
yes,
no, you put yours down first.
yes.
Cisco and Kira comply.
Mm.
The two Paradan guards do. One of those two guards says, everything you need to know is behind this door.
That's right.
O'Brien says, yeah, like a squadron of rebels, maybe, huh? And the guard really wants to open the door. Kira says, listen to him. He's not your enemy. We're not your enemy. Again, she's finally trying to appeal to O'Brien rather than being more ambiguous.
Mm.
And while one guard opens the door, the other fires on O'Brien, who's going to lift his phaser
Yep.
because he's seen the other guard moving towards the door.
Mm-hmm.
On screen, I think it isn't completely clear what's happening, and it's not entirely.
I didn't.
In the script, O'Brien is about to fire on the man who's going for the door because
Oh.
he's seen the movement.
Oh.
So O'Brien is raising his phaser, and that's why the other Paradan guard
Thank
shoots
you.
him, because his
I-
weapon was raised. On screen, it happens so quickly. It really is a who shot first.
Thank you. Mm.
So yeah, that's unfortunate in the episode because I think it does undercut a little bit what's happening.
I wasn't
O'Brien
sure.
then is shot. He falls back against a computer bank. The door opens and Bashir is behind it, standing over a body on a table. And only as Bashir leaves the room, the camera kind of moves down to reveal that the person on the table is O'Brien with bruises on his face.
Mm-hmm.
Bashir then squats down by wrong O'Brien as Cisco and Kira stand behind him. Real O'Brien leaves the small room and the two O'Briens stare at each other. And Real O'Brien comment, he's perfect. He looks just like me. And this is the first time in the episode that we've been taken effectively away from fake O'Brien's point of view, where about as confused as he is in this moment. It's really shocking. Kira quietly says, apparently he thought he was you. And already he's not unconscious yet, but they're talking about him as if he's not there.
Oh, it's so weird. Yeah.
The guard says, no doubt they thought that would make him more convincing. We believe there was some triggering device programmed into him that would take over during the peace talks. The government scientists have learned how to do remarkable things with replicants. So we're simultaneously learning that the O'Brien we've been with this whole time is replicant, and that the Paradan government, not the rebels, are trying to undermine the peace talks by planting a replicant, while wrong O'Brien implicitly believed that the government were in the right. He'd just spent a week being trained with them.
Yeah.
It makes in universe sense that
Right.
if that were real O'Brien, it would make sense that he was on the side of the Paradan government, given the information he'd been given by them. It makes sense that clone O'Brien is on the side of the Paradan government because they might have programmed him to be. Apart from everything else, the kind of B plot in this episode is what the fuck is going on with the Paradan peace talks, and it makes sense. It holds together. They've actually thought about it.
I'll be
Real O'Brien,
honest,
after all,
you did have to explain that to me, Kat, because I've got to admit, this is my third or fourth time, maybe my third time watching this, and I was still like, I don't know who's on whose side here. I just couldn't follow that at all.
Again, I think reading through the script helps make it clearer, just taking it line by line. Because in the episode, you're reeling from the fact that there are two O'Briens in the room, trying to take in the whole conspiracy about the Paradans at the same time. When we haven't met a Paradan character until a couple of minutes ago, they were two guards. One of them shot our O'Brien. That is one thing that even the writers admitted. The ending is abrupt. And it doesn't give breathing room to everything that's happened in the episode.
Thank you. I just thought, wow, I'm really dense because I really enjoyed this episode. I've seen it 3 times. I still don't know what the hell was going on. And it's because, they've just unceremoniously shot O'Brien at the very end of the episode, which, to be honest, is a bit of a DS9 trait. You know, it's the end of the episode, let's shoot somebody.
Second character, summarily executed.
Summary execution.
At least it wasn't the main team that have done it, though. They made sure it was one of the Paradan guards this time. Which, fair enough, the guy was reaching for his weapon, but you don't actually fucking see that.
Oh my god. Yeah, so I'm still reeling from that, and then there's just this exposition dump, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So I felt very much like wrong O'Brien. I don't know what's going on.
I think overwhelm at this point is very understandable. Real O'Brien asks, well, what was he programmed to do? The guard says, we're not entirely sure. Assassinate someone at the peace talks, we think, perhaps our entire delegation. And Cisco says to Real O'Brien, they were tipped off by one of the informants in their government. There was a rumor that you'd been abducted and replaced by a replicant. So that's all the staff aboard DS9 knew. It was a rumor.
Yeah.
So they're acting strangely around him, but not apprehending him because it might still be Real O'Brien. But again, why not just talk to the guy?
Yeah.
Just explain, we can't know whether it's really you or not. You clearly have all of your memories, but I hope you understand we need to put you in the brig until this is resolved, not just let him walk around. But then again, yeah, there is the what is he going to lead us to? How much information can he? But he doesn't lead them to anything because he's completely innocent. I think that was the plan on the part of the DS9 crew. He'll lead us to the others who are involved. He'll lead us to the device he's planting. None of that happens. All we see is a completely innocent O'Brien run around being very frightened and then getting squashed at the end of the episode. It's fucking devastating. I'm going to run through this last bit of script and then we'll talk about our feelings about the ending.
Let's do it.
The guard says, we've had people looking for you ever since. Bashir says there was no way to prove he wasn't. They're all talking to the real O'Brien. They've stopped talking to the fake who is dying on the floor.
I found that awful.
It really does add to the feeling of horror at this point. I think what the writers are trying to do is reaffirm that is O'Brien. There can be no doubt that the person they are talking to now is the real O'Brien. Forget everything you thought. I think that's what it's for. It's strong direction that we have to believe that is now O'Brien. There can't be a mistake. But it does feel so fucking cold.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Bashir says he passed a physical exam with flying colours and he sure knew his way around the station. Real O'Brien says, I had more wires attached to my head than you could count. Now I know why. Clearly they were copying every aspect of his mind. Kira says, we were trying to shut him out of every sensitive security area while they were searching for you. I'm sure he wondered what the hell was going on with all of us. And Bashir says, by the time we'd learned of your rescue, he'd already gotten away from us and was on his way here.
There we go.
The guard says, I wonder why he was coming back. And Real O'Brien, while looking at fake O'Brien, says, if it were me, I'd be trying to warn someone that there was something wrong at the station. And Cisco says, maybe in a strange sort of way, he was trying to be a hero. I think that alienation of the character we followed for most of the 45 minutes, they're not talking to him, they're not asking him. No, Bashir is leaning down next to him. We assume that Bashir is trying to keep him alive. But they're not treating him like a person, and he is a person. He is as much O'Brien as O'Brien is, until the moment when he would have been triggered, which we never get to see. Wrong O'Brien then puts his hand on Real O'Brien's shoulder urgently, saying, Keiko! And Real O'Brien, what about her? He's like, this is my wife, what the fuck? And Wrong O'Brien just says, tell her I love, and then dies with his eyes open. I'm just... It's really devastating. This is a man who believed himself to be O'Brien. He didn't prove himself not to be O'Brien. Everything about him was O'Brien. He loved Keiko with his whole heart, even though she was cold to him throughout the episode for reasons he couldn't understand at the time. And then he dies. And ultimately, he dies because he's a clone and a replicant, sorry. And you can't have a replicant running around unless he's Thomas Riker, in which case he's miraculously allowed to live. Everyone else,
no, absolutely.
God damn! So it's so cleverly constructed, because if we'd known early on that there was a replicant, we'd have known that they'd be dead by the end of the episode. What we see is our O'Brien cleverly outmaneuvering everyone exactly the way that he would, being in love with his wife, having written sexy letters to his wife, and then getting shot dead. And it is as if O'Brien has been killed, because we haven't spent any time with the other O'Brien. We don't know what he's been through for the last few days. He's not known to us in the way that the other O'Brien is. They kill off a character that they've just shown very intimately to us. It's so clever and it's so painful. I'm really in awe of it. It's such a good episode.
It is tremendous, and the only kind of rationalization I can give for that final harrowing scene is that this episode specifically only ever spends time with Wrong O'Brien's perspective, right? All we see is from him. In this final moment, we are finally seeing things from the perspective of the DS9 crew and O'Brien, Real O'Brien. Real O'Brien's been held prisoner, and his colleagues and friends on the station have had to deal with an imposter who they suspect is hostile. To them, the guy on the floor is not even a guy. They never explain what the nature of a replicant is, but it's just some kind of clone, some android, some you know less than believable, sorry, less than real copy. So we have that horrible emotional whiplash of going from the point of view of everyone else in the show. The thing on the floor is a machine designed to hurt. It's not real, but we don't think that because we spent the entire episode with him and nobody else. So that's it. I think it's fully intentional to give us that whiplash, but I don't like it. I really don't like it. I wish they hadn't done that. I find it upsetting that they have done that to me because I care so much about Replicant, about Fake O'Brien. Oh, it is a knife to the heart, Kat. Oh, it's horrible.
It really bloody is. I just, it has that impact. For all that the end scene is rushed through so quickly, for all the explanation about the Paradas, everything that's happened in the background while we were following our O'Brien. It's our O'Brien. He's not just fake replicant O'Brien. He's ours.
Precisely.
For all that it's rushed through, there is also something just very powerful about it. They don't have that, they don't have the two O'Briens holding hands or making promises to each other. He makes one final request and dies while asking it. In terms of emotional punch, it's huge.
Immense.
It's really powerful, even though we know at that point that it's a replicant. He is a replicant, and he's, as you say, been reduced to a thing that was putting people in danger. And rewatching the episode with that in mind, it works really, really well.
It does. I mean, all you could think is if he had received his trigger phase and turned into like his Manchurian candidate and gone around blasting people, then it'd be like, oh no, this is awful. That's the real what he's been designed for. But we don't get that. We just get real O'Brien all the way up until this, and then he dies unceremoniously, having just realised what the reality is. Oh, it's cold. It's cold. So this is, I guess, the episode wash up. We're in it now. I just noticed in the chat, Dennis, they're just saying, why doesn't Star Trek use the kind of cloning effect that created Thomas Riker to create lots of duplications? The answer is the effect that created Thomas Riker is very hard to repeat. It only happens one other time successfully in Star Trek. And that's on lower decks, which is not itself a reliable source. Cloning itself in the Star Trek universe seems to be taboo. I think that episode with the where they stage the elaborate plot to kind of frame Odo, and it's a clone is killed. I think there is a definite discussion that it is taboo to do cloning in the Star Trek universe. So.
Yeah, later on in Enterprise, there'll be an episode where they clone Tucker to get organs to treat him with, and it's an interesting episode because chronologically it predates all of the other Star Trek series.
Interesting.
And they talk with him and they tell him what it's for, and he comes to terms with his death before they have to harvest his organs. It's a reasonably well done episode, to be honest.
Okay, I never got.
But it does kind of raise all the ethical issues of why you don't raise self-aware clones, and doing it, having a whole army of them. Yeah, in the 90s would have been impossible to film, even if they wanted to.
Absolutely, and much more easier. The ethical implications of that are indeed very antithetical to Star Trek, which would just not have any of that. So I'm glad they've treated this in other Star Trek instances well. So that's why. I've completely lost my train of thought. We are in the wash up. So there it is. My God, yes. What a horrendous chest punch of a conclusion.
So I think the shape of the episode is pretty much perfect. The way that it raises tension, reduces tension when we meet Odo, raises it again when Odo and then Jake have been taken over.
Yeah.
It's just immaculate. I absolutely love it. I would have expected to watch it through a second time and go, oh, that's janky. This bit wouldn't work. This person's acting too suspiciously. But no, it's really well scripted and acted.
I think go ahead, Kat.
No, I was going to say I've got a couple of extra bits of info to pop on the end. But what were you going to say, Tim?
I really want to sound out Colm Meaney again for going from essentially a bit of a light-hearted character, We saw in Rivals him being like, I'm a real man with his shirt off, being a bit dad bod, That's how O'Brien normally is in my mind. And then in this episode, he is frightened, confused, alienated, on the run. He's still creative, inventive, and he wants to do the right thing. Like they said right at the end, I think he was trying to be a hero. He was. all the way through this, he'd be like, "We can't let the Paradans come here. It's not safe for them. The mission,
Absolutely.
the
When he's in
mission,
fear of his life, he's trying to contact Starfleet Command to make
do
sure that
the right
Starfleet
thing."
isn't
Yes.
compromised. Yeah.
What a
Oh,
hero! What a hero! And he gets shot.
he gets
Oh,
murdered
it's
at the end of the
just
episode. I get,
horrendous.
at least he's murdered by a random guard rather than by one of our
Can
people.
you imagine if Cisco or Kira had to drop him?
Oh my god. Or if they'd made O'Brien himself do it. Yeah.
Oh, that would have been the worst. That would have been truly horrific, but
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't go for that.
exactly. Cat, you have some trivia for us. I love trivia. Cure me with trivia.
I do. Again, as usual from Memory Alpha, Ira Stephen Bear recalls, in a way, it's Invasion of the Body Snatchers from the Body Snatchers' point of view. That's what ultimately makes the show
Oh,
tragic and interesting,
yeah.
that the Body Snatcher doesn't know it. It's unfortunate. When he says show, he means episode. I think that's quite standard when they're
Yeah.
when the cast and crew talk about a show. It's unfortunate that the show ended so abruptly. I wish we'd had a little more time. That's from the Deep Space Nine companion. And yeah, absolutely. But I think, yeah, as I've said, I think that just smack ending also has the emotional punch that it needs. They could have drawn it out. They could have had O'Brien reintroduced to us as the character that he is, given us time to get used to it, given the dying man a better send off. They didn't. It's so impactful because it's so abrupt. And it might not have been planned that way, but I love that about it. I think it was really well written and edited. The decision to use the word replicant when referring to the fake O'Brien was
Yes.
motivated by the desire to use something other than android, apparently, which was
Okay.
deemed to be too familiar with the character of Data, or the term clone, which didn't seem to fit in this instance. There isn't any more information about why they didn't use clone, but apparently writer Paul Robert Coyle ultimately chose replicant as an homage to the 1982 Ridley Scott film Blade Runner, and the
Nice.
fact that the term had not already been used in Star Trek. Coyle commented, obviously this guy wasn't a clone or an android or a robot, so what's left? I used replicant and no one objected. So I'm sorry that I referred to him as a clone or wrong O'Brien throughout. Replicant O'Brien. I think for me, replicants are so closely tied with Blade Runner that I couldn't quite. And they are self-aware. They know that they're replicants. The word doesn't quite fit for me because of what a replicant is.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. I love that read by Ira Stephen Bear. That cuts to everything I was thinking. That Invasion of the Body Snatchers, from the point of view of Body Snatcher, who doesn't know he's a Body Snatcher? That's it in a nutshell, isn't it? That's it. The twist within the twists. Brilliant. Okay, so on balance, we think a pretty strong episode.
Oh damn yes! I think this is a genuinely good episode that I will continue to look back on fondly. It's really well done. We've got nice. I think I'd love to have scenes between characters where they're being very much themselves. It's a little lacking in that, but even the bits between O'Brien and Bashir, they're so good. And Keiko, even though she's having to act against Typewell with Brian, incredibly strong acting. Just
brilliant.
Roland Chow. Just everyone in it is really good. It stands up to a second and probably a third watching. I really loved this episode. Yeah. I hope that it's not all downhill from here.
I think, I said at the end of the Armageddon game, but for about like 90% of the rest of the season, it's just banger after banger. Just absolutely outstanding episodes, in my humble opinion. And I'm trying not to skew your impression. So I will be very keen to see what you think of the rest of the season, Cap. I think the rest of season 2 just is absolutely on fire, with maybe one or two exceptions. And you will have to let me know when we get to discuss those episodes if you thought an episode fell short of.
You know that I won't hold back.
That's why we do it. Kat, that's why we do it. We are coming in at 2 hours, 5 minutes, which I think is a pretty reasonable time for us. So I'm going to call it there if you've nothing left to add. I don't want to cut
I think
you off
that's it. Great episode. If you haven't watched it recently, I recommend that you do so. Although you've now had the twist spoiled to heck.
Really good point.
I think you will still enjoy it nonetheless. It's a great episode.
Well said, well said. I do think that we work on the premise that those of you joining us in chat have probably seen the episode in advance.
I think we definitely work on the premise that it doesn't matter if we spoil you, because if you're worried about spoilers, why are you here?
Why are you
Other than
here?
to support your friends. It's very sweet of you,
That's
but
very sweet.
get it watched first.
You are not going to know what the hell we're talking about. We don't know what the hell we're talking about some of the time.
And we don't want to hurt you. We don't want to tell you things that you haven't seen yet. So if you can, please do watch it.
We're not your enemies. We're your friends.
You can trust us.
We all no.
Nice.
So, As always, Kat, it has been a pleasure to go through another episode of Deep Space Nine with you. It has been a pleasure for everyone in chat joining us. Dennis, Nige, Willow, Andrew, all of you, thank you so much for joining us. It is a pleasure. Kat and I will be back as soon as we can manage with our lives with the next episode of Season 2, which will be, I believe, Shadow Play, which is an Odo and Dax episode, if I
Oh,
recall
yay!
correctly. And we will hopefully be back in a couple of weeks on a Monday. And I think that's everything. So, as always, thanks very much. Take it easy out there. Live long and prosper, you lovely people.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.